Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Holloway, Georgia. My name is Simone Carter. I'm 27 years old, and I'm the daughter my parents never thought was good enough, until the day they accidentally handed me everything. Let me take you back. I grew up in a modest house on the south side of Holloway with my parents, Dennis and Lorraine Carter, and my younger sister, Vanessa. From the outside, we looked like any other family. Sunday dinners, birthday parties, Christmas photos where everybody smiled. But inside those walls, there was a quiet, unspoken truth that shaped every single day of my childhood. Vanessa was the one they loved more. I know how that sounds. I know people hear that and think, oh, every kid feels that way sometimes. But this wasn't a feeling. It was a pattern. It was a system. Vanessa got the new clothes. I got the hand-me-downs from our cousin. Vanessa got dance lessons, piano lessons, summer camp. I got a used library card and instructions to entertain myself. When Vanessa brought home a C- in algebra, my parents hired a tutor. When I brought home straight A's, my mother glanced at my report card and said, "Good, now go set the table." It wasn't abuse, not in the way anyone could point to. It was something quieter, something that eats at you from the inside out like rust through metal. It was the feeling of being invisible in a room full of people who shared your last name. By the time I turned 18, I stopped trying to earn their attention. I got a job at a logistics company as a filing clerk and worked my way up to an administrative coordinator in 4 years. I rented a small studio apartment, paid my own bills, bought my own groceries. I didn't ask my parents for a cent. Not one, and they never offered. Meanwhile, Vanessa, 2 years younger, 25 at the time, was still living at home. She'd dropped out of community college twice, worked part-time at a boutique she called a creative endeavor, and spent most of her energy curating her social media presence. My parents covered her car insurance, her phone bill, her credit card. She was their baby, their star, their priority. I had made peace with it, or at least I told myself I had. Then came the family meeting. It was a Saturday afternoon in March. My mother called me on a Wednesday and said, "Your father and I have something important to discuss. Be at the house Saturday at noon. Don't be late." She hung up before I could ask what it was about. When I arrived, Vanessa was already sitting at the dining room table, her nails freshly done, scrolling through her phone like she already knew what was coming. My father sat at the head of the table. My mother stood beside him with her hands clasped, wearing that expression she always wore when she was about to deliver what she considered a generous act. "Girls," my father began, clearing his throat. "Your mother and I have been talking, and we've decided it's time to help you both get a proper start in life." My heart actually lifted. For one brief, foolish second, I thought, maybe they see me now. My mother smiled. "Vanessa, sweetheart, we've purchased a brand new apartment for you downtown. 2 bedrooms, fully furnished, parking garage, all-inclusive amenities. The lease is in your name and paid in full for 2 years. Vanessa squealed. She literally clapped her hands and jumped out of her chair. My parents beamed at her like she'd just won a Nobel Prize for existing. Then my father turned to me. "Simone," he said, "we have a property we'd like to give you as well." He slid a manila folder across the table. I opened it. Inside were photos of a house. And when I say house, I mean a wreck, broken windows, a sagging roof, an overgrown yard that looked like it hadn't been touched in a decade, peeling paint, cracked foundation visible even in photographs. It looked like a place the city would condemn, not a gift. "It needs some work," my mother said, not even looking at me. "But you're the practical one, Simone. You can handle the potential. Before I tell you exactly what happened next, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel." I sat there staring at those photographs while Vanessa chattered about curtain colors for her brand new apartment. My chest tightened, my throat closed. I could feel my pulse in my temples. The practical one, that's what I was to them. Not the deserving one, not the hard-working one, the practical one. The one who could be handed garbage and expected to smile. I looked up at my parents. My mother was already watching Vanessa again. My father was nodding along to something Vanessa said about guest towels. I closed the folder. "Thank you," I said quietly. And I meant it, not because I was grateful for the insult, but because in that moment, sitting at that table, watching my parents hand my sister a palace and hand me a ruin, something clicked, something cold and clear and final. I drove to the property that same afternoon. I stood on the cracked sidewalk and looked at the sagging porch, the shattered windows, the roof tiles scattered across the dead lawn. It was worse than the photos. Far worse. But I also noticed something else, something my parents clearly hadn't bothered to check. The lot was large, very large, and it sat on a corner right at the edge of a commercial corridor that was growing fast. I went home that night and read every single page of the paperwork my father had given me, every clause, every addendum, every footnote. I had no idea that what I found buried in those documents would change everything and eventually break my family apart. The days after that family meeting were some of the loneliest of my life. I kept replaying my mother's voice. "You're the practical one, Simone." As if practicality was a consolation prize for being unloved, as if being capable meant I deserved less. I lay in bed that Sunday morning staring at the ceiling of my studio apartment, and I let myself feel it, really feel it, for the first time in years. The anger, the grief, the humiliation of sitting at a table while your own parents show you without hesitation exactly where you rank. And then came the noise. Vanessa posted a video tour of her new apartment on social media. Marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows, a balcony overlooking downtown Holloway. The caption read, "When your parents believe in your dreams, kapash a blessed ambakert family first." My phone buzzed with messages from relatives. My Aunt Claudette texted me, "Saw Vanessa's new place. So exciting. I'm sure yours is lovely too, honey." She added a smiley face. She had no idea. My cousin Darius called me that evening. "Simone, I saw Vanessa's post. What did they give you?" I told him. Silence. "They gave you a condemned house," he said. "It's not condemned," I said, though honestly, it probably should have been. "Simone, that's not a gift. That's an insult wrapped in a deed." I didn't argue. I couldn't. But here's what Darius didn't know. What nobody knew. When I'd read through the paperwork that night, page by page, line by line, I discovered something my parents had clearly never bothered to investigate. The property deed didn't just cover the house. It covered the land. All of it. A double-wide corner lot with special commercial residential zoning, a designation that, in Holloway's rapidly developing East Corridor, was extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily valuable. My parents had looked at a crumbling house and seen trash. They hadn't looked at the ground beneath it. I didn't tell anyone, not Darius, not my coworker, Janelle Odom, who'd become my closest friend over 3 years of late shifts and break room confessions. Not anyone. I folded that knowledge up and tucked it deep inside my chest like a seed planted in silence. Instead, I got to work. I took on a second job, weekend shifts at a catering company, 16-hour Saturdays on my feet, hauling trays and cleaning kitchens. Every extra dollar went into the house. I watched YouTube tutorials on drywall repair, roofing patches, plumbing basics. I bought tools secondhand. I spent my weekday evenings after my office job driving to that house and working until my hands blistered and my back screamed. Janelle came by one Saturday with coffee and stood in the doorway, staring at the gutted kitchen. Plaster dust in my hair, a crowbar in my hand, sweat dripping down my temples. "Girl," she said, "what happened?" I told her everything, the meeting, the apartment, the photographs, the look on my mother's face, all of it. She set the coffee down and looked at me for a long time. "You already know your answer, Simone," she said. "Would you accept this from a stranger? Someone on the street handing you a broken-down house while giving someone else a palace and telling you to be grateful? Would you accept that?" "No." "Then why accept it from the people who are supposed to love you most?" I didn't have an answer, or maybe I did, and it was too painful to say out loud. She picked up a paintbrush. "Show me what to do." That was the turning point. Not a dramatic confrontation, not a screaming match, just a friend standing in my broken house with a paintbrush, showing me that someone in this world thought I was worth showing up for. Over the following weeks, I made quiet moves. I researched the zoning laws. I pulled public records on the lot. I contacted a real estate attorney named Frank Bellamy who specialized in commercial property, and I paid for a consultation with money I'd saved from catering shifts. He confirmed what I suspected. The land was sitting in a prime development zone. Several companies had been quietly pursuing parcels in that corridor for over 2 years. "You're sitting on something significant, Ms. Carter," Frank said, leaning back in his chair. "The house itself is worth next to nothing, but that land, with that zoning, you're looking at a figure that would change most people's lives." I asked him to begin exploring options. Quietly, discreetly, no announcements, no fanfare. And I kept renovating. Not because I needed to increase the property value. The land was the asset, not the structure. I kept renovating because I needed to prove something to myself, that I could take what was broken and make it whole, that I could build something beautiful out of what was meant to humiliate me, that I was not what my parents saw when they looked at me. The next morning, I woke up exhausted but calm. My hands were sore, my shoulders tight, but something inside me felt steady for the first time in months. For the first time, I wasn't trying to earn my parents' love. I wasn't performing for their approval. I was building for myself. I was done being the practical one. It was time to be the powerful one. Months passed, 7 of them to be exact. By October, the house was unrecognizable. I'd replaced the roof with help from Darius and 2 of his friends who worked in construction. I'd reframed the porch, sanded and sealed the hardwood floors, installed new windows, patched every crack, painted every wall. The overgrown yard became a clean, landscaped lot with a stone walkway I'd laid myself, one flat rock at a time. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't marble countertops and floor-to-ceiling windows, but it was solid. It was warm. It was mine in a way that nothing had ever been mine before. Built by my own 2 hands, paid for with my own sweat, shaped by my own will. Meanwhile, 3 months earlier, in July, Frank Bellamy had connected me with Ridgeline Development Group, a firm that had been assembling parcels along the East Corridor for a mixed-use commercial project. When their acquisitions director saw my lot, the size, the corner position, the zoning, he nearly choked on his coffee. "Ms. Carter, we've been trying to get a parcel with this zoning designation for 18 months, he told me. "This is exactly what we need." We negotiated carefully. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I let Frank guide me, and I asked every question twice. By August, I signed a conditional sale agreement. The figure was 6 times the value of Vanessa's downtown apartment. 6 times. For a piece of land my parents considered worthless. The agreement was structured with a 90-day escrow period, which meant the deal wouldn't close until November. I told no one. I went to work, I catered on weekends, and I finished my renovations in silence. Then, in early October, my mother called. "Your father and I want to see the house," she said. "We're coming by Sunday." I almost said no. Almost. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe a lingering reflex to obey, said yes. They arrived with Vanessa in tow. I watched from the porch as all 3 of them stepped out of my father's sedan and stopped dead on the sidewalk. My mother's mouth fell open. The house gleamed. Fresh paint, clean gutters, a garden bed blooming along the front walk. Through the windows, you could see the warm interior, polished floors, new lighting, a kitchen I'd tiled myself in a herringbone pattern I'd learned from a tutorial at 2 in the morning. "Simone," my father breathed. "You did all this?" "Yes." They walked through every room. My mother ran her hand along the kitchen counter. Vanessa stood in the living room saying nothing, her jaw tight. I could see the math happening behind my father's eyes. The neighborhood, the lot size, the recent development projects going up 3 blocks east. Have you ever watched someone realize they made a mistake? Not because they feel sorry, but because they feel cheated? That's what I saw on my parents' faces. Not pride, not admiration. Regret. The specific, bitter regret of someone who gave away something they now want back. 2 days later, my mother called again. "Simone, your father and I have been talking. We think it's only fair that Vanessa gets the house." My stomach dropped. Excuse me? Well, it's not fair, is it? You've made it so much nicer than her apartment. Vanessa deserves a proper home, too. We're going to transfer the deed. You're asking me to leave my own house? We're not asking, sweetheart. We're telling you. You have 48 hours to collect your things. Vanessa will be moving in this weekend. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the kitchen I'd tiled at 2 in the morning, the kitchen where I'd eaten cold soup out of a can while my hands bled from sanding, and I laughed. Not a happy laugh. A laugh of absolute bewildered clarity. They wanted to take the house they gave me as an insult, the house they never expected me to make beautiful. Now that it was worth something, now that it shone, they wanted it for Vanessa. Again. Always Vanessa. Always. But they didn't know about the land. They didn't know about the zoning. They didn't know about ridgeline development or the signed agreement or the escrow closing in 3 weeks. They had no idea what they'd really given me. I called Frank Bellamy. They're trying to take the property. Let them try, he said calmly. The deed is in your name. Has been since March. They have 0 legal standing. And once escrow closes, there won't even be a property to take. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Knowing my parents had shown their hand, that their love was conditional, transactional, and retractable, should have devastated me. Instead, it felt like the last lock clicking open on a door I'd been pushing against my entire life. I wondered, was it possible to grieve a family you never really had? 3 weeks later, on a cold Tuesday morning in November, the escrow closed. Ridgeline Development Group wired the funds into my account. I sat at Frank Bellamy's conference table and signed the final documents with steady hands. No tears, no champagne. Just a quiet, enormous shift, like tectonic plates settling into place beneath my feet. I was financially independent, not just comfortable, free. The day after closing, I called my parents and asked them to meet me at the house. My mother arrived with Vanessa and a set of moving boxes in the trunk. She walked up the front path like she owned the place, chin high, keys to the apartment already in her purse, ready, I assumed, to hand me Vanessa's old keys as some kind of consolation swap. I'm glad you've come to your senses, Simone, my mother said as she stepped onto the porch. This is the right thing to do. My father stood behind her, arms crossed, avoiding my eyes. I held up my hand. Before anyone goes inside, we need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Your father and I... Mom, I said it firmly. Not loud, not angry, just solid. The house has been sold. Silence. What do you mean sold? My father said. I mean the property, the house and the land beneath it, was sold to a development company 3 weeks ago. The deed has transferred. Escrow is closed. It's done. My mother blinked. You can't sell the house. We gave it to you. Yes, you did. You gave it to me. My name is on the deed. It was legally mine to sell, and I sold it. For how much? Vanessa asked. It was the first thing she'd said. I told them the number. The color drained from my father's face. My mother grabbed the porch railing. Vanessa stared at me with an expression I'd never seen on her before, something between fury and disbelief. That's not possible, my mother stammered. It was just an old house. It was never about the house, I said. It was about the land, the zoning, the lot size, the location. You didn't check. You didn't look. You saw something broken and assumed it was worthless, and you gave it to the daughter you considered worthless too. My father opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Simone, we never said you were... You didn't have to say it, Dad. You showed me. Every day, every decision, every dollar spent on Vanessa that was never spent on me. Every time you looked past me to look at her. You showed me exactly what I was worth to you. And then you handed me the proof in a manila folder. My mother's eyes were wet. We're your parents. That money should be shared. Vanessa deserves... Vanessa has a fully furnished, fully paid downtown apartment. She has a car you pay for, a phone you pay for, a credit card you cover. She has everything you've ever given her, which is everything you never gave me. I paused. I didn't take anything from anyone. I just stopped letting you take from me." Vanessa stepped forward. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away with all that money and leave us with nothing?" I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not anger, not satisfaction, sadness. Because Vanessa wasn't the villain of this story. She was a product of the same broken system. She'd been taught that love was a resource to be hoarded, and she'd learned her lesson well. "You still have Mom and Dad, Vanessa," I said quietly. "You still have the apartment. You still have everything they built for you. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm just finally keeping what's mine." Nobody spoke. The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked. I picked up the last box I'd left on the porch, a small one, mostly photos from the renovation and a ceramic mug Janelle had given me that said "Built Different," and I walked to my car. "Simone," my mother called after me. Her voice cracked. "You're making a mistake. Family is family." I turned back one last time. "I hope you mean that, Mom. I really do. Because family should mean that everyone matters, not just the one you love most." I drove away. 2 months later, I bought a modest 3-bedroom house in Westdale, on the other side of Holloway. New neighborhood, new beginning. I furnished it slowly, piece by piece, the way I'd renovated the old house. With patience, with care, with my own hands. Janelle helped me paint the living room. Darius built me a bookshelf. Frank Bellamy sent a housewarming card that read, "To the smartest client I've ever had." I heard through Darius that my parents tried to contest the sale. Their attorney told them they had no case. The deed was clean. The transfer was legal. There was nothing to challenge. I heard that Vanessa moved into the apartment but complained about the noise and the parking and the neighbors. I heard she asked my parents for a house instead, and they couldn't afford one. I heard my mother told her church group that I'd stolen from the family. A few people believed her. Most didn't. The truth has a way of sounding different from a lie, even when you can't quite explain why. My father called me once in January. He didn't ask for money. He didn't yell. He just said, "I didn't know about the land, Simone." "I know, Dad." "I should have looked." "Yes?" I should have done a lot of things differently. I waited. My chest ached in the old familiar way. That little girl ache, the one that never fully goes away, the one that still whispers, "Maybe this time they'll see me." "I hope you and Mom find peace," I said. "I mean that. But I can't go back to being the daughter who accepts less and calls it love. I won't do that anymore." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I understand." And he hung up. I sat in my new kitchen. My kitchen in my house, bought with my money, earned by my hands. And I cried. Not because I was sad, because I was free. And freedom, when you've never had it, feels a lot like grief at first. You mourn the years you spent in chains before you learn to celebrate the open road. So, after everything you've heard, if you were standing where I am now, with a family asking you to give back the very thing they threw away, would you hand it over and call it forgiveness? Or would you keep walking and call it self-respect? I know what I chose, and I'd choose it again, every single time. And that's Simone's story, a daughter who spent her whole life being overlooked, being skipped, being handed the leftovers while her sister got the feast. Her parents gave her a broken-down house thinking she'd struggle quietly, the way she always had. They never imagined she'd read the fine print. They never imagined she'd find the gold buried beneath the wreckage they tossed at her feet. And when she turned that wreckage into something beautiful, they tried to snatch it back, not for fairness, for Vanessa. Always for Vanessa. But this time, this one time, Simone didn't fold. She didn't shrink. She didn't hand over what was hers to keep the peace. She kept it. She walked away. And she built a life that no one could take from her ever again. Here's what I want you to remember from this story. The people who underestimate you are doing you a favor. They're handing you freedom disguised as disrespect. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, they're going to look at what you built and realize they gave away the most valuable thing they ever had. Not the house, not the land. You. Now, before you go, I need you to do something for me. If this story hit you, if it made you feel something, if you know what it's like to be the practical one in your family, drop a comment below. Tell me. Have you ever been given the short end of the stick by someone who was supposed to love you equally? I read every single comment, everyone. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Hit that bell so you never miss a story. Because every single week, we bring you real, raw stories about people who were underestimated, betrayed, and counted out, and came back stronger than anyone expected. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it tonight. You never know whose life you might change with a single click. Until next time, protect your peace, know your worth, and never let anyone tell you that you deserve the broken version of love. This has been Untold Revenge Files. I'll see you in the next one.